There's always the fun part where I'm like, are we live yet? Are we live? Does anyone see me? Can you hear me? Can you acknowledge my existence?
I can hear you.
Cool, that's one.
Actually have two people right now.
Two? Sweet, yeah. There's always like a bit of a lag between when StreamYard goes on LinkedIn. So if you can see me, if you can hear us, please say hi and let us know where you're dialing in from. Both Kim and I are in Brooklyn, so Kim, you're probably like 3 miles away from me. If we were to
You'll be able to hear the sirens at some point during the broadcast. Don't worry. You'll know I'm in New York City.
Yeah, they'll start at your apartment and make it over to mine.
Yeah, exactly.
It's almost comforting for me when I hear that. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm not the only one. But the theme of today is creating content. That is a pain when you're trying to create content from your apartment, and you sound all professional. All of a sudden, it's like there's a siren that goes by, or like I don't know, like Meek Mill's blasting on someone's car stereo, and you're like, all right, cool. We'll just won't do this.
You're like, I don't have the rights for this music, so I will have to cut out Meek Mill later.
Yeah, but
there's inevitably always something that goes wrong. Like that's the one thing I've learned from 15 years in TV and media is something will go wrong, but it's never the thing you're predicting.
Yeah.
It's very encouraging, right? That's a very encouraging advice I have at the top of the hour.
Yeah, right. But I think it's this. I mean, I think it's good knowing that everyone has constraints. And because it's easy to feel like you're the only one who doesn't have a fancy camera or whatever it is. But I remember one time I was creating content for Verizon, so like a real company, and we were in the Bronx, but there was a recycling plant located next door. So they're like, hey, can you do us a favor? Can you just talk really loud so we can kind of drown out the sound? So I'm yelling as I'm saying my lines, and you see the veins in my neck like bulging on camera because we're trying to get this take while there's all these trucks going on in the background. So I'll start looking in. It's like, wow, this guy's making videos for Verizon. It's like, no, I'm actually tired from yelling for 2 hours.
Well, what do they say? They say there's always value in being authentic. So I bet you seemed very authentic, like really like ginned up,
It's like, here's what I learned about social media.
Here's how to learn. And then you like deadlift 500 pounds and then you're that guy.
Yeah, it fits. But cool. We got Jeff from the other side of Long Island Sound. We got Valerie from London. Valerie, welcome. Teresa from Alabama. Someone saying hi. Awesome. We got Louisville, Kentucky. We got Megan, who's also in Brooklyn. A lot of Brooklyn here. Laquan, good to see you again. Got Adam from Wisconsin. Cool. All right. So we got a lot of people here today, which is great. And our overall goal here is to show you how to quickly create good content, right? And good content is going to be specific to your audience. So we'll talk about that too. But the overarching theme here is letting you know that you're all creators. And no matter what tools you have access to or what kind of background you have, you can create content to attract and convert your audience to get these opportunities, whatever it is. And I want to make sure that you're not letting your best ideas, thoughts, and perspectives stay trapped inside of your head because you don't have the actions, tools, and mindset to do so. So in case you haven't realized already, my name is Terry Rice, and I normally help early stage entrepreneurs build their brand and revenue. I'm also a staff writer at Entrepreneur Magazine. Father of 4 kids, none of which are here today, so it's going to be somewhat quiet. But I'm also joined by Kim Rittberg. And Kim, you've done so much over the years. I'm going to let you introduce yourself and tell it from your perspective, but I'm glad to have you here.
Thank you so much. This is very exciting. And hello to everybody who is learning and joining us. So I'm going to give the most important parts of my history that is applicable today. So I have started my career in TV news, national and local. So I think that what is applicable to entrepreneurs is that local news actually works on a very small budget. So I really do understand how to create content on really a small scale and then up to a large scale. After working in 10 years as a national TV producer writer, I shifted into digital. I ran the Us Weekly video unit. I launched their video unit. And so we started with 3 people, eventually scaled to 18 people, and I oversaw all of that. So with 3 people, it's pretty small. And then with 18, obviously we're churning out hundreds of pieces of content a month. I also worked in marketing at Netflix, and through those experiences in branded content, I worked with companies like Target and Essie and AT&T. So I really understand journalism and marketing. And so now I work for myself and I help companies figure out how to express their message really well, connect with their audiences, and how to make amazing content that cuts through the noise. And I recently was honored with a Webby Award, which I'm very proud of.
Well, unpack this Webby Award. What did you win? Well, first of all, what is a Webby for those who don't know?
A Webby is a big honor. It's the internet's biggest honor. I produced a series of videos for a nonprofit called It Gets Better. And these 4 video series was an honoree from the Webbies for public service and activism. So now I help all sorts of entrepreneurs. I have realtors, lawyers, nonprofits, media, and I advise them I do media training. So getting them ready for camera to feel comfortable. And then I advise them on what kind of content you should be making, which is exactly what we're talking about today.
There you go. Well, everyone say congrats to Kim for winning this amazing award for the It's Better campaign. Super important. So thank you for that. But let's get right into it. And before we do, any questions you have about creating content, tools, best practices, ideas, whatever it is, go ahead and put those in the question and as a comment, and we'll make sure we get to them because I have a lot, but I want to make sure that you get value from it too. So Kim, just from the perspective of an entrepreneur who wants to grow their brand, but they're short on time, they're short on tools, so on and so forth. What type of content should they be making in order to grow their business, not just their social media following?
That is a great question. And the most important advice I would give every entrepreneur is be ruthless. Ruthless with your time and ruthless with your resources. Like I mentioned before, I have worked at places that are really big and places that are small. No matter what, even at huge companies like Us Weekly, I had to say no to great ideas, great celebrities, because we didn't have the manpower. And it's really, really important to be ruthless and stick to your goals. So if your goal is to bring in more leads or attract a different type of clientele or whatever your goals are, you have to have that as a sticky note on your laptop. And when you write all your ideas down, you have to ask yourself, does this ladder up to my goal? And if the answer is no, you put it in your box and you say, when I have time, I'll go pursue that. So that could be a TikTok trend, a dancing, singing TikTok trend. If you don't think your customers are there, or you don't think getting a following on TikTok is going to drive your goals, you do not need to do that. And you should not do that. So that is like my number one thing. Number 2, I know we always talk about like, know, and trust. You have to be really comfortable with yourself and you have to show up on video. And I'm not just saying that because that is a part of my company, but truly when entrepreneurs show up as themselves and as really as themselves, not imitating some other version of themselves that they think they should be, it converts because people feel like they know you and they're just more inclined to do business with you, buy your product, hire your service. So that's another thing that's really, really important is becoming comfortable on camera and becoming comfortable talking to your laptop, to your iPhone. So those are like the first 2 things, because I think that is applicable to everyone, no matter your business, no matter your industry. Time and resources are finite and they will run away. So be ruthless about what your goals are and make sure it matches up and get comfortable with being on camera. You have to show up to grow your business.
That's hard though. That's really hard. I mean, even for me, getting comfortable on camera took a while. And I always say in my first few videos, I looked scared and angry at the same time. So it's a really bad combination. And I know common advice is like, oh, you just got to do it, get your reps in, so on and so forth. But for some people, like just getting that first rep is the hardest part. So can you give us some tactics? How do you talk to people on camera without feeling you're talking to a computer, feeling that like you're talking to that person behind the computer, but just get started is not going to be enough for a lot of people. So how can we get comfortable creating this content on camera? What devices can we use? What kind of like mindset? What kind of content? Like just for people who are like, sounds great, but I'm still stuck at step 2. What can we do?
So first of all, I posted, and I can repost it on my Instagram. I posted like one of my first videos that I ever did. That's a good idea. I'm gonna post it later tomorrow. My first time reporting on camera, I looked like a deer in headlights. I looked terrified. I was like imitating what a reporter might look like on camera. And that's just how we are. It's practice makes perfect. Like there is no silver bullet, but you have to put your phone up against your dresser or get a ring light with a tripod stand, something cheap, easy you can buy, online or in your local store. You have to start talking to your camera and you have to just start talking about the things that you would be talking about. So if you're a lawyer, if you're selling t-shirts, whatever you're selling, start talking to your camera about who you are. Hi, my name is Kim. I run a communications company. We offer media training and content strategy. Just get comfortable saying it. Get your mouth and your muscles comfortable with saying it. The more time you do it, the more comfortable you'll get. And then prepare. You know, nothing makes you feel more uncomfortable than when you don't know what you're saying because you didn't prepare. So that's another thing is prepare. And just for everybody, truly, I work with CEOs, I work with founders, people who are very successful and very smart, and everyone feels self-conscious. So some of the other things is dig a little deeper to figure out what it is that is scaring you, because a lot of people feel like people are judging them. The truth is, they're thinking about what they're having for dinner or what they're doing after work. They're not really putting that much thought into you and what you're doing. So just really think about who you're serving. In theory, you're showing up to help your clients, to teach people. Whatever it is that you're doing it for, remember the underlying reason. It's a lot easier to break through that nervousness when you realize you're helping somebody.
Yeah, I think there's two takeaways from that. One is day in the life content. You mentioned, hey, if you're selling t-shirts, talk about that. So you can say, hey, right now I'm at this factory sourcing t-shirts. This one has this blend. This one has that blend. This one feels better. It may be more expensive, but I want you to have a good experience, so I'm buying this one. And then just getting more comfortable. I think there's some breathing exercises that have helped me in the past. And I'll give you a really good example. This one time I was doing this interview. It was a video interview for Entrepreneur Magazine. Can't remember who the person was. But I worked out like an hour before the interview went live. So I take this pre-workout just so I can get a little energy when I'm working out. And it was still like in my system when I'm doing this interview. So I'm pretty much high trying to interview someone, entrepreneurs, like 1,500 people in attendance. And I'm just like, 100 miles a minute that I'm talking. But I knew, like, if I can just get my breath, if I can just slow my breath down and focus on that, I'll be able to slow my words down and become more focused. And while she was talking, that's what I did. I just practiced on getting my breath down, deep breaths, longer exhale, deep breaths, longer exhale. And then by the time it was my turn to talk again, I was calm. I had no clue what she said because I was focusing on breathing. So horrible pivot. But what I'm saying is if you're feeling nervous, don't just like launch into it and start talking. You want to get your breath first. And Kim, some advice you gave me as well is talk to someone else. If you have your spouse there, you have a friend you can call, do whatever, but don't have the first time that you talk, if we're doing video camera, be when you're live, get in the conversational tone already. And then if you can, pretend you're talking to that person behind the camera as well, because that helps as opposed to just kind of launching into it.
Absolutely, 100%. So I think of it as in the weeks leading up to when you're going to start to be on camera, get comfortable, start talking to your camera. And in the minutes leading up to it, there's breathing. Breathing can do wonders. Like it always sounds like, oh, what is 10 seconds of breathing going to do? A lot. Your body responds very quickly. So even if you're just going, and if some people have too much energy, not too much, are higher energy, and some people are lower energy. So you have to figure out what you're more prone to. I'm obviously more prone to higher energy. So I have to breathe in to calm myself a little bit. And other people who are a little lower energy, they have to breathe and get a little higher energy. They might lean on music. Like a lot of people listen to some sort of music that gets them in the mood. So they could maybe, for them, it's maybe a dance music or exercise music. For me, it's like classical. And definitely don't be cold. So Terry and I have worked together before, and that is one of the best tips I learned ages ago and I carry through is don't start a video being like, hi, because that's going to come off really cold. So you talk to your friend, you talk to your partner, and you're like, hey, could you please make me a coffee? Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Hi, Terry. Thank you so much. I'm so glad we're chatting. It's just warmer. Your vibe is warmer. Your actual vocal cords are warmed up. So I think breathing, not being cold, figuring out which energy level you're trying to get to and set to that right before. And then the last one that I've done on my own that I find very, very helpful is a mindfulness technique. And that is using touch to ground you. So you can either rub your fingers on your hands, calms you down, rub your hands on your jeans or whatever. And the actual touch sort of grounds you in that moment and gets you out of your head a little bit. So I think those are 4 in the moment of really great tips to keep in mind before you're going on live for social media, recording for social media, public speaking, investor meetings. I mean, this is for everywhere, truly. So I hope those tips are helpful. I think they're both for showing up on social, but also applicable to a lot of other places.
Yeah, I'd agree. And we're already getting some great tips on the chat window here. We're saying join your local Toastmasters club. I love that. So local community where you're practicing speaking in public. Steve saying the same thing. And Cynthia, who was our guest last week, said, one thing that helps me a lot is making conversation with the coordinators of an event, if there is one, before going live and cracking some jokes. Eric is saying he's in the Calabasas Toastmasters. I'm guessing that's Calabasas, California, where my business partner actually has an office. So
where all the celebrities live. That's what I've learned from all those reality shows.
That's why we have the office there. But let's take a step back and go broader than video, because I know some people are like, hey, video, cool. Some people it's like, well, how can I get started with other ideas? And what I'd like to do is go back and forth a little bit with where you get ideas from, where I get ideas from. If anyone wants to chime in where they get tips, ideas from as well, that'd be great, because I want people to walk away with this actionable next steps. So for me, one way that I get content is by retelling stories from my career as an independent consultant. So there was this one time when this person hired me, and the next day they're like, why isn't all this stuff done? I'm like, I don't know, because you just hired me like 4 p.m. the other day. And the guy's like, look, I'm under a lot of pressure, so I'm going to put that pressure on you. And I was like, actually, you're not, and I'm done. Right. So I told that story on LinkedIn, and people were like, wow, this is beneficial, because first of all, it's inspiring and empowering, but it's just me being authentic. So that's one thing I like to do. Another thing I like to do is just look at like myths, or at least common approaches towards entrepreneurship, and saying, actually, this is a horrible idea. So people will tell you, hey, you got to do cold calling and DMing. Actually, that's a crappy idea. Instead, you should create content that attracts and converts your ideal audience, right? That way they're reaching out to you, as opposed to you begging them to answer your DMs and have this virtual coffee. So 2 things. One is like day in the life content that I like sharing my experiences. And another is being kind of a contrarian, or at least going against like the tide of common thoughts that are out there. But how about you? Where are some ideas that you get ideas for your content?
So I agree that in terms of like video and content overall, when you're showing up for your business, you have to be thinking of a content mix. So you're going to need a content strategy that is not just video, but is video, photo, text. So thinking about all of those things, and then thinking about how you're going to approach it. So number one, I love the idea, I love it when any presentation or Q&A or things that people respond to in your DMs, I have a document, I jot those down. And then for when I'm looking for content ideas, I go back to it. I say, okay, let's say I got a bunch of responses saying, I loved hearing your tip on this, or, hey, I have a question with this. I add those add those questions to my ideas document. And at some point those become content. So real world questions from customers or potential customers, that is exactly what you should be making. So 100% to that. I think, so my background is journalism. So I really always think about, generally companies want to make an ad, right? Like that is by nature. A company wants to make an ad, and a consumer wants to read an article that is interesting to them. And so the best type of branded content is like somewhere in between. So you're serving your audience or your ideal client with interesting content, and you're also promoting yourself or your brand or your message in some way. So I think of that as whatever product or service you're selling. Think about what are people asking about, and it doesn't necessarily have to be your own product. Like let's say you sell t-shirts and everyone's talking about recyclable cotton or synthetic fibers. So injecting yourself into that conversation in a way that is editorial, and editorial meaning you open a magazine or you watch TV or you're online, what people are actually like reporting on versus branded content or an advertisement. So I think you kind of always want to be in that middle of that, Venn diagram of what an outlet would write and then what you would put out as an ad, and kind of be in between. I think that there's a lot of different ways to get ideas. So depending on your area, you're an entrepreneur, so you're very smart and you work really hard. And I'm sure you follow competitors and you follow your field. So always be following competitors on social media and be following magazines and websites and seeing what they're covering. And of course, that's not to steal ideas, but it's to spark ideas. And I try to consume both things in my area and then also stuff completely outside my area. So for me, I follow a lot of like typography and font stuff, and I don't actually use them in the majority of my work, but it does help me think of a different way, colors and visuals, and it will help at some point. But I also think be in your area, but be in another area, because you really need other inputs instead of like the same 8 voices all the time. So I think those are things that are really important to think about when you're creating content.
One theme that I'm hearing here, and I say this often, is you must consume content to create content.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you're just saying the same thing over and over again based on your experiences and your knowledge. And we're seeing some great tips here. First of all, I think it was, let me go back. Liz was saying just to get more comfortable on camera, she has a handful of comedy videos saved to her phone, which is awesome because you're going to be in a good mood. I'm hearing now Toastmasters is also available online, so you can
Great.
practice on camera remotely. Cynthia, I love this idea for her getting good ideas. So join exclusive groups, like it could be an online Facebook group that you have to pay money to attend to join, and she'll just read the conversations that are taking place there. And those are often more fruitful because these are people that invest in community, so that the thought level is a little bit higher sometimes. But if you see this theme keeps on coming up over and over again in digital marketing or UX or recycling or whatever the heck it is, you're like, wow, this is really top of mind. And what I've done before is even go on channels like Reddit, and I'll look for audiences that are aligned with my brand. It could be entrepreneurship. And if I see, wow, automation, this post about automation really took off this week, it's the top post of the last week, I know that's top of mind for people that are entrepreneurs, and I can create content about it as well. So it's hard enough to make content. I think if you can make it easier to find ideas, you absolutely should. And one of my favorite approaches is, just like you were saying, looking for competitors or similar people to you and just reading the comments on their posts as well. And you can answer them, sure, but often my comment on a post turns into my own post because I was inspired by the context provided.
Absolutely. And one of the best things I would say is, as you're having those moments of inspiration or ideas, take a screenshot of it, put it in a document for later, because there's always like a month later when you're struggling for an idea, but dip in, screenshot things as you're going around, as you're online and looking at inspiration, because you're going to need that when you feel like you're out of gas, you're tired, and you don't really have time, or you don't want to do the promotion. And then to the point of speaking and being comfortable, Clubhouse is a great way also to be more comfortable speaking. It's audio only, so it's very low bar of stress. And again, it's about getting comfortable with speaking. Like the first few times are hard. And I think all of these ideas are great. I think Toastmasters is great. I think no matter where you are, if you're really nervous to be on camera, perhaps shy or whatever, or you're borderline like doing the moth and a comedian, stand-up comedian, I think no matter where you are, you're always just trying to get to that next step, try to grow yourself a little bit more, feel a little more comfortable. And I know people really hate watching themselves back, but you have to watch your videos back to get better. You do, you have to. And I know that that's something, as I've said before, I've worked with tons of people.
I'm with you there. There's so many videos people say, oh, that video is amazing. I'm like, cool, because I've never seen it. Like there's just, like, even this, I might never watch. We'll see. So if you're watching this and you enjoyed it, please let me know at what point you enjoyed, and I promise I'll go back and watch it. But why do you think that's the case? Because on my end, it's not that I bored myself, but there still is that, I don't know, maybe it's being self-conscious, maybe, I don't know what it is, but why do you think people don't watch their own content or even read their own content? Because that's how you get better. So what's stopping people, and how can we push through that?
Well, thanks for asking, because Dr. Rittberg is here. I read a very interesting article. Scientifically, we actually hear our voice differently than it sounds out loud. So when we hear our voice, we think it sounds bad because we're not used to hearing what other people hear. The truth is, like, all of our voices are fine. Like it's not, none of us sound like, what is it, Alvin and the Chipmunks or whoever. And I think secondly, there is just, we are our own worst critics. It's with a lot of things. And I think that I like to think of, all of our characteristics are sort of a double-edged sword. We're very ambitious. We're very hardworking. We want to be the best. Like that's a lot of people, but especially I think entrepreneurs, you're in it because you have a passion and you have a drive and you want to be the best. So when you don't feel super amazing at something, you don't think you're such a star on camera, it can sometimes drive you to maybe not want to show up on camera. So I think that a lot of people feel that way. It is actually a very normal thing to feel judgmental about yourself or to feel a little negative. But again, I really think you just have to lean into the fact that if you believe in what you're doing, you have to believe that you're doing it to grow your business. Remember, it's the business goal. So every day that you're showing up on Clubhouse or at Toastmasters or talking to your dog to get more comfortable, recording on a selfie, that it's one step to the larger goal of showing up more, making people trust you more, to grow your business. So I think that really keeping that goal in mind will help you, because it won't feel like, it won't feel so narcissistic. It will feel like a business goal. I mean, I honestly, last year, I was like, oh my God, I'm a media trainer. I run my own content company. Like I worked at Netflix. I ran the Us Weekly video unit. I'm honestly a content expert. I'm not showing up. How can I not show up? Like that's crazy. So I forced myself to start showing up. But even someone like me, it was a little uncomfortable at first. And I've been a reporter, an on-camera reporter for a little bit, but I've mostly been a producer. And so everyone has these same doubts and these same insecurities. So just remember that, but you have to fight through because it is a business goal and you do have to fight through it.
Yeah, let's kind of get even more tactical. And I have a question for everyone listening, just to kind of tee things off. Yes or no, do you plan your content in advance? Yes or no, do you plan your content in advance? Because one thing I'm hearing from you is the need to organize better, whether it's keeping track of ideas or eventually we'll get to content planning. But on my end, that was an issue for years where I was a day of type poster, not someone who planned because it felt more authentic. And the downside sometimes for planning is, sure, when I wrote this 2 weeks ago, I was deeply involved. It was meaningful. But right now, if you're responding to my post, I'm like, I'm not really feeling that right now. It was harder for me to be in the moment. But that's what pros do. If you're not planning your content, they're not going to be aligned. It's not going to be aligned with your business goals because so often I'll have an event like this or something else that I'm planning. And I'm like, oh, shoot, I have not promoted this because I didn't plan a week in advance to say, by the way, I'll be here for this LinkedIn Live or so on and so forth. So again, I'm asking everyone, yes or no, do you plan your content in advance? And then Kim, back to you. Do you do so? How do you do it? I mean, my friend Brittany Barnhart, who might be in attendance right now, she's an expert at doing that in Notion. She sells Notion templates for people to plan their content as well as their business goals. But on your end, what's that process look like for you?
Sure. So I 100% recommend planning your content because that's what the pros do. But it's not just because what the pros do. It's because all of us, life happens. So let's say you're going away for a 3-day conference or you get really busy with family or social obligations. You look at your social media and you're not showing up for like 3 days or 5 days. You really want to be consistent. And the way to be consistent is to prepare your content in advance. Not only will it help you to be consistent, but it will also help you be more efficient. And so efficient doesn't mean doing it fast. It just means doing it faster than if you did it separately. So think about this. If you set up, let's say I'm just going to talk about video for right now because, it's a video. We're talking about video. But you set up your tripod, you turn on your ring light, you set up your camera. You're lowering your blinds, you're getting the audio right. It takes a little bit of time to get your setup right. So if every time, and this is, by the way, something we did at Us Weekly when I ran like a small unit and then eventually an 18-person unit, it has to be turnkey. You have to be able to say, okay, ring light on, phone on, tripod up, shoot. If you're spending more than like 5 minutes on the setup, that's valuable time away from your business and away from other goals. So you want the setup to happen once. And then when you're set up, you maybe, did your hair, did your makeup, put on a nice shirt, whatever it is for you.
I didn't do any of that, as you can see.
I can see, Terry. I can see.
Worked out in this shirt. Really
I'm just kidding. I'm only kidding. Your workouts really inspire me. I almost want to deadlift 300 pounds, but I'll maybe do like 85, 100. But once you're ready, and we talk about, being comfortable on camera, once you're in the groove, you should absolutely try to shoot as much as you can while you're in the groove. You're warmed up, you're looking good, your lighting is good, and your audio is good. Every time you turn that on and off, it's just extra time. That's time away from your business. It's just not a smart use of resources. So just think about it strategically, ruthlessly, and efficiently. It's much more efficient to do that. So set up your camera, prepare that stuff. So when you're shooting it, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to be shooting all of your scripts in a row. You are going to be preparing for a lot longer than you are going to be filming. I just want to tell people that. Everyone thinks it's about like turning your camera on. It's not. It's like very little is about the record. It's all you're preparing in advance. What are you going to say? Where are you going to film it? Like, who are you going to be talking to? Is it a Q&A? A lot of your time will be spent preparing much more than your actual video content. Your video content might be a minute or maybe it's 20 minutes, but you should be spending a lot more time preparing because that is really the most important part of any shooting.
Yeah. One thing I got in the habit of doing is if I am recording a video, I'll set the stuff up the night before because it might take me like a half hour to get everything done. And that's usually after I drop my kids off, right? So I dropped 4 kids off. They're complaining about everything under the sun. So my brain is already a little frazzled as it is. But I have to spend 45 minutes or half an hour setting up my equipment. It's like, great, now I'm shot. So that helps. But even with batch creating content, I'll take like 2 hours on a Monday, right, in the morning, or even on the weekend, like usually around 5 in the morning. I don't recommend that if that's not your thing. But before any distractions of the world get into your head, and just dump out this stuff. And that way you can write a week worth of content in as little as 90 minutes or so. But throughout the day and throughout the week, I have all these ideas that are popping up. And that's what you're saying, like jot them down. Now, I'm horrible at jotting them down. I'll email them to myself. I don't know why, right? I know Evernote exists, right? I know Google Docs exists too. But when it's time to actually write stuff down, I already have a lot of ideas. And then I put some kind of format around them, whether it's video or written. But that's the way you do it. And that's the way you show up consistently, because one thing you have to realize is, like, whether you're creating content on LinkedIn, Instagram, or whatever, the views never go down. So even if you have a post that's, like, let's say, not that great, you're still going to incrementally keep on getting people that see your content. And sometimes what I found is the content that, let's say, flops because you didn't get a lot of views or likes or engagement, it's because it went so deep with a specific audience. The people that do see it, they reach out and they're like, how can you help me, right? Because you can go viral with a knock-knock joke, yep, right? Or memes and stuff like that. No one's going to say, hey, Terry, great meme. Now can you help me grow my business? No, they're just going to like it and keep scrolling. But if you have like this very deep, insightful, quality content, maybe it's not as accessible to the masses or interesting. But the people who do pay attention are like, oh, wow, this guy gets it. And that's why I want to work with him or her.
I was just jotting down notes because I want to respond to that. I think that's a great point. So I'm going to go back to the very first thing I said, which is about be ruthless. So I agree with you 100% about analytics, right? In our social media, how you can see if a post is doing well. You go into your analytics, you see how it's reach, you see its responses, you can see some are really high, some are low, and some are in the middle. Great. Okay. The truth is, if you're trying to drive clients, you're trying to bring in business, it really only matters which of your content is hitting your target audience and which is driving actions. So I think that's some of it is you can have 1 million followers on TikTok or Instagram or LinkedIn or 1,000, but the person with 1,000 might be making more money or doing more business or hitting more of their goals. So I think metrics, it's really important to not be so consumed with metrics or vanity metrics, because if you're hitting your goals, that's way more important than how many views or how many engagements on that post. So I'm really glad you brought that up. And then the other thing about systems and content creation is I never like to fight a person's natural state. So some people are more spontaneous and other people are planners. So if you are a more spontaneous person, you might not get into doing the 4 hours, sit down with Canva and Adobe Rush and do all your content. That is okay. Don't fight that. However, if you can learn to do an hour at a time or half an hour at a time and get 3 posts out of that. So I think it's really important. A lot of these like hustle culture and productivity hacks and all that stuff, they try to make you be someone else. And that's something that I fight. I'm like, I'm not someone else, I'm me. So if I can put aside an hour, I'm not going to put aside 5 hours to shoot. I'm just not. I have 2 kids, I'm running a business, I'm busy. But if I can force myself to shoot for 1 hour and get X amount of content, that's better than waking up and being like, oh, I didn't have time to post that reel and now I haven't posted for 3 days. Ugh. So I think it's really important for each person to figure out what works for you. I love Google Docs. Honestly, I have an 88-page Google document. I recently interviewed Gretchen Rubin, the happiness guru, and she and I have that in common. I have like an 80-page Google document with a table of contents, and it's insane, but it works for me. So I think that it's really important to remember whatever works for you. I put my ideas, I have an Excel, I just have like a basic Google sheet, and I put in ideas and I write like a caption and I write what type of content it's going to be, and then I build it out. I use Canva. I think Canva is amazing. It's very inexpensive and they have templates that are really nice. And then you can customize it to your colors and it's just very easy to use. I use Adobe Rush or InShot on my phone. So those are a couple of video platforms that I think are very user-friendly. Like even though I work in video, I'm actually not an editor. So I can edit for social media, but like if I'm working a documentary, I wouldn't be editing it. So those are very user-friendly things. And again, about batch creation, you're in the groove. you're on your laptop, you're editing and you're in the flow, try to get, 2 videos, 4 videos, 6 videos, whatever you can do. And also remember, a video could be 5 minutes, a video could be 15 seconds. So if you sit down and you're creating like a hero piece of content that's long, don't forget to cut that up and use that in different places. Don't forget to take pull quotes from us. Like I'm going to take some pull quotes from this, Terry, and it's going to be a post next week, So remember that when you're making one big piece of hero content, and hero being like a big video, a big YouTube video, a big blog post, that you can then cut that up and do that use it in a lot of different ways. So you're getting more bang for your buck.
I want to talk about that. I want to do things. First of all, Liz is a Kochumen. Hopefully that I'm pronouncing that correctly. If not, please do correct me. But she's saying, in regards to her ideas, she leaves a voice note on her phone to do so, which I think is brilliant. And she's saying you can be much more strategic with your content if you plan in advance, as opposed to doing it on the fly. So I like to have a combination. But Liz is saying a lot of cool stuff, so I would consider following her if you're listening. And another question is saying, any recommendations on how to have an easy to set up recording for videos when you can't have a dedicated space for it? I mean, I'll tell you what works for me. It's just having a ring light with one of those cell phone holders on it. And just from there, I'm good to go. I just pick like a corner that doesn't look like there's crayon on it. So if you see behind me, like it's good enough as a background. And that's what I use. But anytime you can be facing a window, that's going to be helpful too, because of lighting issues. Facing a noisy street, unfortunately, so there's going to be sound issues. But you don't want to let the setup interrupt your ability to create content. So the faster you can do it, the better. And like I have a tighter shot right now, so it's like you don't have to worry about too much of your background, just like kind of you more or less on the camera. But that's what I would recommend highly. And Kim, I want to have you chime in, but after that, I want to go back and bullet point some of the tools that you mentioned, because I'm sure people are scrambling to write them down. We will have them on the show notes on my website. That's terryrice.co. But if we can go back to bullet pointing that out later, but let's for right now focus on how do you have this set up where you can quickly create content, especially video content in this case.
So the good news is that there is a lower bar for social media. And by that, I mean, I came from TV, right? You'd have to have a really deep background and you have your cameraman like 10 feet in front of you and you needed a big studio. You don't need that anymore, and people don't demand that. So the good news is you don't really need more than like a nice corner of your room. So there are a lot of things you can buy tripod wise. If you're really hurting for space, I would recommend a tripod that can sit on your desk, that has a small ring light that your camera can sit in, which I think, Terry, you were mentioning. If you have a little more space, I'd recommend getting a standard tripod with a larger ring light. The ring light is going to be lighting up a larger space, so you can film from a little further back. It just gives you more versatility. And again, no matter your setup, there are tons of tools. So a ring light, a tripod, and get whatever fits in your area. Now, another thing I would recommend for some people, a selfie stick. If your sort of content, like let's say you're shooting a lot of behind the scenes content, I'd recommend getting a selfie stick, because just being able to change your background is very visually arresting. Someone's like in your feed and seeing you in your office, in your factory, out and about, in the gym. It's great. And then, so ring light, tripod, selfie timer as a functionality, I think is a great thing. That's one of them. I'm trying to think I'm looking around my studio. And then, I'm recording a podcast, so I have like a really fancy mic, but you don't need a super fancy mic. You can just onboard it. I'd say if you are doing a series where you're interviewing people, then I would recommend buying an additional little mic that plugs into your iPhone. It's called a Zoom recorder. So those are all really easy. They're really accessible. I think the beauty of social media is it's really accessible. Like everyone can do this. It used to be that you needed a whole camera crew. Like you don't need that anymore. So those should be just great for now.
Yeah, so I absolutely agree with that. And I'm going to answer some more questions. But before I do that, if you're listening and you're wondering how to create content for LinkedIn and how to optimize your profile, I do have a workshop coming up on the 26th from, I believe, 2 to 5 p.m. And Megan can drop a link for that for you to attend. But I'll show you everything that I've done to optimize my content process, as well as doing inbound marketing. So if you want to join me and hear me talk for 3 hours instead of 1, please do. But we'll get the link to that in the chat window soon. One question from, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Lena, Lina. My daughter's name is Lena, Lena. People call her Lena, so I feel you if this is incorrect, and I apologize. But she's asking, what are some planning tools for social media planning that you recommend? Ideally, a one-stop for tracking. And again, my friend Brittany Barnhart, she makes these Notion planning templates for you to plan your content. On my end, I use Publer, Publr, I think, just drop off the E. And that integrates with Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. I know there's several out there, but Kim, do you have any recommendations as well?
In terms of planning and scheduling, a lot of people like to use later.com or Planoly, and different ones have different analytics and insights. So you'll kind of have to compare, but generally a lot of people use them and they find them to be, well suited to their needs.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of them, like the basic function is the same. And what I don't want anyone to do is to get caught up on what tool do I need? It's not the tools, it's the ideas and it's the execution. Because tools will amplify the reach of your content. They'll make it easier for you to plan your content, but they're not going to create your content. And I'm guilty of that, saying, oh, this ring light, doesn't look good in this kind of light, or this microphone doesn't operate at this decibels. It's like, dude, just start talking, right? So I think we've mentioned some great tools, and I'll go back. Canva, gosh, that should just be automatic for everyone at this point. There's so much you can do with it. It's ridiculous. It'll be well worth your time to spend just 4 hours learning how to use it, and you'll be on your merry way. Another tool is Adobe Rush. And Adobe Rush is a tool that you can use just on your cell phone to edit videos. So let's say you have 2 videos you want to stitch together, you can do that. Or maybe it's a video, then an image, then another video, you can do that too, and it looks really good. InShot's another option for you too, to do the same thing. I use a tool called Descript, Descript, nailed it, to edit my videos as well. Because what you can do is, if you want, you can record with your camera and then still put it through this tool, but add elements like it could be captions, it could be titles, so on and so forth. And all the stuff we're mentioning is either free or less than $20 a month. So don't go crazy buying a bunch of expensive stuff, and definitely don't buy stuff that you don't know how to use. Like, don't say, oh, I'll learn how to use it. You probably won't, because you're so busy running a business and creating content. You don't have time to learn like some complicated system. Eventually you can outsource that, but I just don't want you to get stuck on spending a lot of money on tools, whether it be software or hardware, and thinking that's going to make it better. Like, you make it better, right? Everything you need is already within you. We're giving you some structure around it, but don't feel like you need all these external resources to make it better. It's your ideas and perspective and worldview that really matters.
And the one thing that I'd say when you're setting up a video is important is have it be well lit. And there's a lot of resources online, and you can Google like how to light my iPhone video well. The idea is you really want light from 3 sources, like 1, 2, 3. So front, right, and left. Obviously, if you don't have a huge light setup, which most people don't, you can use a window, and then you can use a ring light. And like right now, like one half of my face is getting natural light and the other is getting a ring light. And I'm using that to balance. So I would say, you all had those Zoom meetings where someone's like in a closet in a cave, and I wouldn't film like that, but that's not a matter of buying a huge light set. It's a matter of buying 1 ring light and balancing it with natural light, or buying 2 ring lights, but it's not a lot that you need.
I feel like that person hiding during those meetings just didn't want to be on the calls.
Yeah, I'm like, you could just turn your video off. Like when you're sitting in the corner, shrouded in shadow, you could just turn your video off.
Yeah, I dig it. So another question from Eric, he's saying, if you have Canva, do you still need to learn Photoshop? Eric, I mean, this is my perspective. I wouldn't because you are a business owner. You have to grow a business, not learn Photoshop. And I'm not dissing Photoshop. I used to work at Adobe, and guess what? I don't know how to use Photoshop. And I worked there for 3 years. No one said, hey, dude, prove it, right? So these things, like, I get it. It seems like it should be a good idea. Maybe you want to like have a growth mindset and all this stuff. But how about you just get really good at your job instead of really good at Photoshop? Because it's not something that's not in your zone of genius, as I talk about all the time. So I would pass on that. Question.
I give a total thumbs up. No offense, Adobe. Do not learn Photoshop. Canva can do the things. When I started the Us Weekly video unit, our editors would spend hours, like cutting out heads and merging things. Canva now does that like this. So really so many of the tools that Photoshop can do, Canva can do, that a person like a business owner would need. I'm not saying that if you're a graphic designer or if you work at an ad agency, you might need Photoshop. For most entrepreneurs, you do not need that. And Canva is pretty amazing and has so many tools and is very user-friendly.
And just out of curiosity, yes or no in the chat window, do you use Canva? Because I'm pretty sure a lot of you do. A great question from JS Hill. Do you suggest using a teleprompter? Yes. Yes. I own my own teleprompter. It probably costs me like 180 bucks. And I have this app that I put on my wife's iPad to make it work. But there's times when I'm supposed to talk for like 3 minutes straight. And they're like, yeah, sound natural. I'm like, bro, like, I talk as fast and quick as I can so I don't forget things. So yes, get a teleprompter and just be aware when you have a teleprompter, there's going to be like a little blue line there. That blue line has to be aligned with your camera, because as long as you're looking at the blue line, it looks like you're looking at the camera. So do that. If you can find an app where it'll scroll as you're talking, not at a predetermined speed, that's golden, because when you have this predetermined speed, you're always trying to stay in that flow. And if you want to have some kind of dramatic pause, you can't, because it's like it's still moving and you're always trying to catch up with it. So yes to a teleprompter. Even one on your phone, those apps would be useful, because it's hard to one take stuff unless you want to be more conversational without having that device available. But kind of going back to that part about having more conversational content and repurposing, which I want to talk about too. This whole interview you're seeing right now will eventually be a series of social media videos. So the benefit of writing a blog is you can slice that up and create a social post from it. The benefit of doing something like this is you can slice it up and have social videos from it. So the more you can repurpose content, the less content you have to make, right? You just amplify it, edit it slightly, so on and so forth. But 1 hour of work, I could run this conversation through that tool called Descript and just get the transcript from it and then turn that into a blog, turn that into a social media post, so on and so forth. So learn to do more with less, if that's the right way to say it. And that way you don't spend as much time creating content.
Terry, one of the other things I was going to say about when you think about creating content. So we talked earlier about how to come up with ideas. So then there's the ideas, which you're jotting down in your own tools on your own time, you're screenshotting your Google Docs or whatever, or voice memos or emails. But then you can also think about the different ways you can present that content. So for videos, could be Q&A. We could talk about explainer videos. I wrote this down earlier, so I'm reading it. It could be a live video. If you have a product, it could be like beauty shots, a moving shoe, a stop motion of a purse, all sorts of things like that. So once you have your ideas, you could think about different ways to execute. And away from video, you also have, a photo with a caption. It can be a blog post. It can be a pull quote. So this video is going to exist in different forms: a blog post, shorter video content. It could be a pull quote. So really, you can get, this content is hero content. Hero means it's an hour, like we're spending an hour. So we should be able to get a lot of assets out of this. So whenever you're coming up with the one idea, then think about what else can exist from this main hero content.
I had to unmute because there was a siren going by, but yeah, let's go back to what you just said too, because I love the whole Q&A approach. And I talked about this with Patrice Polzer. I think she was on a couple weeks ago, where if you're like, dude, I don't know what the heck to talk about, just answer questions, right? Just think of common questions that your audience has and answer them. And I did this whole series of these during the early stages of the pandemic, if that's a time period we can reference, where I was on camera and I would just look down at my phone and it'd say, okay, we got a question from Kim. What's the best way to get clients? Well, actually, Kim, the best way to get clients is to attract them. And what do I mean by that? It's through the content you create, so on and so forth. So it would sound like I was thinking about it off the top of my head. So when I would and ah a little bit, it was fine, right? But if I'm like, this is the best way to create content, like it's like, dude, it doesn't work as well. So I'll say this again, if you want to learn more about my process, Kim can drop the link to that workshop I have coming up. It's LinkedIn Optimization for Entrepreneurs. That's one of them. I made 30 videos in about 90 minutes. And I had to do it quickly because my wife was taking the kids out just so I could have some peace and quiet to do it. But you can do this stuff super quickly and be very impactful without spending a lot of time or money on tools or any kind of like fancy background.
And I think it's really important, speaking of efficiency, like I think I'm also an entrepreneur, so I understand how, really our time is very valuable and we have to be really protective of it. But once you are spending the time to create content, you really got to squeeze that orange and get all the juice out of it. So if you're making a 30-minute or 10-minute or an hour-long video, you got to think about all the ways that can exist in other content. And remember, that could be sprinkled out throughout a quarter or throughout a half of a year. So no one's going to be like, Terry, you're pulling that quote from Kim and it's December. You talked to her months ago. No one cares. No one cares unless it's news and it's timely. So remember that all of the things you're making, you can be sprinkling throughout, and also try to vary your content. Like I was just mentioning, you can do Q&A, explainer, live, beauty types. And we were talking about what types of materials you need. Most of these, a ring light on an iPhone and a tripod is fine. There are some areas, like I'm right now working with a luxury realtor. There are some times where you do need to hire a camera crew and have an editor and edit with proper graphics, but only you and your business can decide when that's necessary. Like if you're a makeup company, you're going to need some sort of like ad and you're going to want to really show close up mascara and blush and stuff like that. So maybe that iPhone is not going to serve your purpose, but maybe it will. So I think that the guidance that we're giving today, it really is pretty much across the board, but you have to figure out for your business, like, what do you need? What's the most important thing? And a lot of these can be done with an iPhone and connecting with your clients and connecting with your ideal audience, because the most important thing is that you're showing up and you're teaching people and you're showing you're an expert and you're showing how you can help them. So that could be done in LinkedIn Lives, that could be done in Instagram Reels, that could be done in Instagram Stories, and if you're on TikTok or whatever. So wherever you are, like showing up and showing people why you want to help them or your product is going to help them in a variety of ways, editorial ways, how your product works, how you work, how someone can work with you. Like there's a million types of things. And to our point earlier about thinking of ideas, think of what people ask you. When someone's like, how do I work with you? What's your process? That's a video. What are the questions you get often? Those should all be videos that you answer straight to camera, and that becomes, content for your social platforms.
It's also a good way to avoid people picking your brain, because you're like, hey man, go watch my videos and you're good. But one thing I do want to mention, Ryan Quinn brought this up earlier as a comment, like, hey, make sure you review your work and check for errors. And I think I agree. I have a somewhat unique perspective on that, where I just say perfection is the enemy of progress. And there's been so many times, because I'm creating content for myself, not when I'm doing it at a corporate level or with a sponsor, then it has to be good. But when I'm doing it for myself, I mess up all the time. So Megan's here. She's my executive assistant. She was reviewing one of my articles I wrote recently. And she's like, maybe that's not where you should put the comma, because it was like in a weird place. And like, I just messed up all this stuff. And I did a video the other day where I just like said the wrong number. Instead of like 1 million, I said 1 billion. It's like, oh, my bad, right? But I think, if you get so hung up on trying to make things perfect, you'll never get anything out. So you'll see videos from me that are on Instagram or LinkedIn where I'm like correcting myself as I talk, right? Or you hear me like hesitate or whatever it is. Sure. I mean, is that great? No, but like for me to get it perfect with 4 kids, it ain't going to happen. You know what I mean? I'll get like 1 video out per quarter. So if I just do it when I can and just, hopefully get the theme of what I'm saying, it works better. So same with my written content. One of my lead magnets, it's this online course that teaches you how to attract and convert clients. There's errors in that too. Like there's typos. People tell me, hey, Terry, great course. By the way, you spelled the wrong. I'm like, thanks. Like maybe I'll just like edit out that part when I post this on social media. But it's like, if you let perfection hold you back, you'll never make any progress. So don't worry about it. I mean, the most successful people I know mess up all the time. And even just now, like we're talking, right? Kim and I are having a great conversation. If you didn't notice, I left for a moment of time because I had to let the UPS guy in, right? So is this video going to be clean, with me and Kim looking perfect the whole time? No, because I had to go buzz the person in before I missed out on, my Amazon delivery. That is what it is. So, and I think it makes it
I want to also note that I'm sweating because I can't turn on the AC and our windows are closed. So I'm also a little sweaty. So it's like not perfect, but it's good. It's totally good content.
Yeah. I don't know anyone who just like has like the perfect opportunity all the time to create content, but they do it, they show up. And I think, again, that makes it more authentic. And what I've done before is like, if you're listening to me and you hear like a siren go by, I'll say, hey, if you've never been in New York, here's your chance to experience it vicariously. It's like, I can't do anything about it, like other than just show up and acknowledge it or not acknowledge it and then pivot from there. But this is me, and this is what I have to offer. Like there's a horn to smell. If that offends you, sorry, but okay, this is how I live.
I started my career in news, and if you made a mistake, like spelling the wrong thing on a live graphic that like millions of people are seeing, it was a really, really big deal. And like someone was in trouble and there was a big meeting with executives. It's not like that now. People understand, and there is that understanding that like you're a person and you're on your iPhone, and as long as you're offering value, it is okay. And yeah, of course, like in a perfect world, everything is perfect, but you're doing your best. And yeah, you should try to copy edit, like especially if you're publishing from an article. Tara, you said, Megan is copy editing you, so that is important. But people are more understanding. I actually posted an Instagram reel recently of a throwback to the Oscars when I went, and I had like behind the scenes footage of me. I was like pregnant on the Oscars red carpet, and I wrote like, "Look, it's Ryan Reynolds," and someone wrote, "That's Ryan Gosling." I'm like, "Well, I don't work at Us Weekly anymore." I was like, all right.
Is that how things ended or what?
No, that was it. The reel was up. I didn't delete the reel. Like the reel is up.
No, I meant your career at Us Weekly. Is that how?
Oh yeah, I got fired because I didn't know who Ryan Gosling was. No. No, they loved me. Awesome.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing some people chime in where Lena, hopefully it's Lena, is saying, it's authenticity is beautiful to me, and you trust people more when they make those mistakes. So yeah, I mean, it's part of it, and it's not something you should, just pursue because it's impossible. And if you're too polished, if you're too perfect, you're not going to be approachable because it's like, well, that person ain't like me because I'm flawed. You know what I mean? Like, how can I learn from that person if they're, all, everything's prim and proper? For me, I'm a bit of a mess. That's why I want to learn from someone who seems like they're going through it too, or they've been through it as well. But otherwise, it ain't going to work. But I do think about it though, because like one of my posts last week, there was like a few typos, and I'm like 20,000 people saw it. And no one told me that there's a freaking typo. Like,
maybe they're afraid of you because they see how much you weightlift in the gym that they're afraid to tell you that you had a typo.
It could be. I want to say they're being kind instead of being afraid. But no, I do think about that. But years ago, I'd be like, oh man, I can't believe I did it. Now I'm like, all right, well, listen, I got kids to raise. So there's other things that are more important than me misspelling like cardboard or whatever. So I think when you get comfortable being uncomfortable, when you get comfortable with your flaws, that makes it easier to create content too, because you don't have all these great ideas that are just trapped in this filter of perfection. You just let it out, and people that are going to appreciate it, people that ignore it. But no one's ever written back to me, or very few people have written back to me and said, hey, you're kind of stupid because X, Y, Z, right? I mean, some people have, and it's like, okay, you have internal problems apparently and taking it out on me because like anger is often depression turned outwards. But the majority of times people are just like, okay, hey, you spelled this wrong, or they ignore it. So hopefully that encourages all of you to start creating more content based on the tools we talked about, the tactics we talked about, and this mindset we're sharing as well.
And again, at the very beginning of the conversation, we talked about showing up. And again, showing up isn't about trying to be perfect. It's about being the most confident, most helpful, most serving your clients version of you. So it's not about being perfect, and it's not about being like an anchor on TV. It's just it's about being yourself, being authentic, and really serving that ideal client.
Awesome. Cool. All right. So let's wrap things up here. Kim, where can people find you? What's the best way to learn more about you? What do you have going on?
Sure. So you can find me at kimrittberg.com, and you can follow me here on LinkedIn, my full name, or on Instagram. As I mentioned before, I help companies with content strategy. So I do audits and plans for company to help them figure out how to create content, and really thinking about all the platforms, what you should be doing, where should you invest your time, and where you shouldn't. I also do media training. So I do courses with people on how to become more comfortable on camera. And again, you can reach out to me. I have a new website. I just invested in myself in a new website and a new logo. It's very exciting. And then in May, I'm going to be launching my new podcast, which Terry is a guest on because I always love talking to you. It's called Mom's Exit Interview. And it focuses on women who are ditching the 9-to-5 to pursue other paths, entrepreneurs, consultants, part-time, all of those things. And each episode is an inspirational mom and then an expert with tangible tips to get you there. So my website, kimrittberg.com, has a drop down that you can sign up so we can alert you when it launches. And I'm very friendly, so feel free to reach out.
Awesome. Kim, thanks again for this. Everyone else, thanks for chiming in. Next week, we're going to be talking about how you can plan your content using a tool called Notion. as well as how you can plan your OKRs, your objectives and key results for the quarter. So stay tuned for that. But again, thanks for attending, and I will see you next time. So thank you.